Yeah, you can get anything you want with Bitcoin. You can buy anything. It's just money. You could get a black Spider-Man, a red Spider-Man, and a green one.
You're going to be one of those 90-year-old men with like 15, 23-year-olds, you are.
I hope not.
Honestly, they like my personality.
They like the Satoshis. I wouldn't be stupid.
Look how many beds we've got in this bedroom. 4 beds.
Is that in case Harry wets 2 of them? He's laughing. My God, that's a dodgy ass for you.
Oi, oi.
I feel like him in your crotch.
You are in my crotch. Right.
Hello,
Harry!
So
Gareth.
Hello, Porky.
Bitcoin there, Gareth.
Yeah, talking about Bitcoin today.
before we start the pod today,
Gareth.
we got to ask you a question.
Gareth.
What do you think of Bitcoin? Do you like Bitcoin?
Yeah.
What is
Good
Bitcoin?
Where's Bitcoin, Gareth?
No, you're answering that. What do you think Bitcoin is, Harry?
I don't know. Treasure.
It's what?
Treasure.
Treasure. Yeah, it is.
And what can you do with Bitcoin?
That's kind of like Spiderman.
Yeah, you can get anything you want with Bitcoin. You can buy anything. It's just money. You could get a black Spider-Man, a red Spider-Man, and a green one.
Have you got?
Gareth, I just got a red one already.
Okay, well, you can just have the black one and the green one then.
Well, and the little one.
And a what? The yellow one.
Yes. Yes, and Hulk.
So Harry, have you got Bitcoin?
Yeah.
You have, haven't you?
Yeah.
Who has your Bitcoin?
You, Gareth.
Yeah,
You
that's
do.
right.
I do
Gareth
look
has
after it for you, yeah.
Because Gareth's given you lots of Bitcoin over your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did Gareth have for? What did Uncle G have for his birthday?
Oh, you have Uncle G.
Remember what birthday?
Huh?
Remember the cake?
You remember the cake, Gareth?
It was a Bitcoin cake, yeah.
Yeah. But I can have a green spider and a little one and Hulk.
He didn't say the Hulk. You're like the government. You are. You're changing the goalposts.
Gareth, can I have Hulk too?
Yeah, go on then.
When you go see Mummy. Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Gareth.
Bye-bye, Pedro. What's your name? Porky. That's it.
Okay.
Okay. Gareth, I told it. 40 Piggy.
Alexa, play Willy Bum Bum.
Gareth, do you know Willy Bum Bums?
Put a Willy in my bum, Willy, bum bum, Willy. And a Willy bum bum.
We can't find Alexa.
Oh no.
Where's Alexa?
Yeah.
She's at home.
Alexa's okay.
She's okay though.
Yeah.
She's looking after Sky.
Yeah.
Okay, say
Yeah.
say bye-bye, Pod.
Bye-bye, Pod.
Bye-bye, Harry. You're literally in one room, are you?
Yeah, we're all in one room. Yeah, you gotta sit down. Yeah.
Then you have a chat.
You're not going to do it in like the reception, or like outside or something, in the reception. Or something. Do it in
Well,
the room.
Well, the plan is for Harry and Harry's going to be quiet.
Yeah, good luck with that.
So the guy's going to be, he's going to be quiet now. He just wanted to speak to you.
I haven't heard Harry be quiet for more than 5 minutes unless he's asleep.
Oh, we'll see, won't we? We'll see. Yeah. So we're at the moment in the Isle of Wight.
Is that where you are, the Isle of Wight?
Yeah, I just got here this morning. So yeah, I've nicknamed it the Isle of Shite. It's like a
where is that? That's I don't even know where that is.
So down south, between Southampton and Portsmouth. There's a place called Lymington where you get a ferry across to the Isle of Wight.
Oh, right.
It's really south, yeah. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. But yeah.
I didn't even think they were letting people on at the moment. I thought they'd close their borders to like
To be fair,
because
they
of the
could have closed
virus.
their border. Yeah, you're right, actually. Yeah,
They're not now letting people on.
Yeah, I think they've given up, haven't they? That's the thing. So what were we going to start with today?
Well, it's interesting that like we've got Harry around at the moment because I just thought as a topic was going to be around passing Bitcoin on, and so if you do just because the thing is like you can plan for these things, but Bitcoin's different because normally with assets it's all physically in your name, but when you've taken self-custody of it, passing it on, it's not really written down in an official bit of paper like a house deeds or a bank account. People just naturally take those over, and because they're all centralized, it's unlikely that if you do rely on a lawyer or something to do the handing out, if they do anything and try and steal the house or steal money from the bank account, you'll see it. It'll all just be there. Whereas with Bitcoin, it would be much easier for a lawyer to go bad there because who knows how much Bitcoin was in the address before, which address was it? And so trusting a third party with it has a lot of risk. So it's just a new problem that if you're not around to be able to talk people through it, like how do we make sure that we pass down Bitcoin from generation to generation? And so how do you do it? Who do you trust? And probably just like what are we doing now and making sure that if anything was to happen, that number one, the wealth you've built up doesn't just evaporate and get lost. And and number two, making sure that how do the next generation take it on, and what are you going to be doing to kind of educate them?
Yes, it's really interesting point because you obviously have got all the insider knowledge and stuff like that for this, and if you weren't around, it would be difficult as it is already. So you're right. If you're having to pass it on into the hands of lawyers and stuff like that, then that's even harder because you've got to trust them absolutely massively, and that's going to be very difficult to do because you wouldn't trust anyone with just like a load of money because you can't be guaranteed that there's money still there. So you would have to know exactly what's in there, but then obviously the finance of how much it's worth is going to be up in the air as well. So it's all about keeping it in your own wills, isn't it? I guess. Because I know what you're saying about, I had somebody the other day, actually, someone that we both know have messaged me saying, if anything's to happen to him, am I able to help his missus get access to all of his? And I was like, of course I can. I'll definitely help. But it's very difficult to say genuinely yes to that without knowing any details, because I don't want to know any details right now. But I guess I would find out close to the time, wouldn't I?
Yeah, well, that's the problem. Like you have to. If you say yes to that, it basically probably means that his partner probably isn't particularly technically competent. So if they just hand you a ledger or whatever, like you're going to need to know like what's the PIN code and how do I get into this thing?
He will leave her different things in different places. So I'm guessing that I would be basically contacted and said, look, I've got this, and this. Can you sort it out? And then I'd just be on the phone to you saying, guys, can you sort this out? No.
I know. Because there's a very interesting situation because there's a very big scandal very early on in Bitcoin. And one of the very first developers and one of the people very, very close to Satoshi was a guy called Dave Kleinman. And he had up to 1 million Bitcoin, a very, very early miner. And yeah, he had access to it, but then he got a debilitating disease and basically died very, very quickly. And yeah, so he didn't tell his wife or anyone really that he was even working on Bitcoin. This was super early in Bitcoin. So obviously it came out in 2009. I think he dies in 2010, 2011. Super early. Like, it hasn't hit the press at all. It's very much seen as drug money and isn't serious. But still, the price of Bitcoin is anything from 100 to like $200 or $300. So that million Bitcoin is still worth a huge amount of money. It's worth tens, if not hundreds of millions. And so what the wife of Dave Kleinman does is she finds out or suspects that he is involved in this Bitcoin thing, and he has some Bitcoin. And she wants to know, and she asks a guy called Craig Wright round to investigate his computer to have a look to see whether there's any Bitcoin on it. And now what seems to happen, or at least what is, there's multiple stories here. Craig claims, or some people claim, that Craig found Bitcoin on there and stole it, and then just told her there was no Bitcoin there. So ever since that, it was years later, because he went away. He was meant to be a close friend of Dave Kleinman and his wife. Said there's no Bitcoin there. Don't know what you're talking about. Obviously, once Bitcoin hit the mainstream and his wife realized that Dave was one of the main guys that created Bitcoin and was in the very, very early days, she went, there's undoubtedly was Bitcoin on there. And how is this Craig Wright guy now a billionaire? I've got a feeling it's something to do. So she sues him for the million Bitcoin, and it's still ongoing now. This court case has been going on for 5 or 6 years. Craig Wright just keeps just talking around in circles and and she says, she admits that he was a very, very close family friend. And he even says that Dave Kleinman was probably his closest friend. And what seems to have happened here is Dave was so private and wanted his security in Bitcoin so private that he didn't tell anyone, even his wife, what he was working on. And that came back to bite him, because when he got this dementia and that ultimately led to his death very quickly, his best mate came in and what looks like stole all his money, stole every single Satoshi.
That's so bad, isn't it? You can't literally trust anyone, can you? If that's, they say, the closest family friend. Like, I bet you there's families out there that probably can't trust even their family.
Well, how many families fall out and ultimately wars start when a relative dies and the pie needs to be divided? Like, the whole will thing and inheritance, that is probably one of the number one causes of family breakups, because money's involved. And we're not talking about 500 quid. We're talking about houses usually and dividing that up. And if you're talking about Bitcoin, it's been held in families for 10, 20, 30 years. When we fast forward, you're going to be talking about those types of values. And yeah, trusting family friends is, you're putting a lot on them, because you have no clue what situation that person is in when they get asked to be like, oh, come in and help this widow, the husband or whatever has died tragically in some shape or form very suddenly, which has meant that he hasn't been able to pass it on. You come in, you could be in debt, you could have your kids could need some treatment that is only available in America, that is super expensive. There's a million reasons. Or you could just be a greedy fucker and you see 5 million quid sat on a ledger and you're like, I could just say nothing about this and just transfer it off onto my own, and she would know nothing. Or I could transfer 4.5 million off, give her 500,000, and she's going to be ecstatic, not having a clue. And so you really have got to be super secure, which, like, personally, obviously we're quite lucky in the fact that we've got each other, and it's like we're brothers in this. So I think it's much less likely to happen within a family. But I've been asked to do it for mates, and I think they know me, and I think it also matters depending on how much money someone has, which is weird.
I was just going to say that. Why would you ever take a few hundred quid or even a couple of grand from, let's just use our example, us. So obviously Harry and Jesse, you completely hold theirs. Admittedly, you've given it them all, but you've given them, if in a normal fiat money, you would have given them the hard cash and it'd be saved in some bank account. But you haven't. So this is a bit of unusual, and you've given the money, but you've still got it. At 18, that was going to be worth a lot of money to them, but you're trustworthy because you're going to have a considerable amount more than that. But let's just say you didn't have any money and you lost everything, and you had to pay your rent, or you had to get that treatment somewhere. You could easily take it. But I think you're absolutely right where you said it's about your wealth, and you trust people that have got more wealth than you. But then some people have that wealth because of a reason, and that's normally because they're greedy. So it's like a bit of a double-edged sword with that one. That's a really interesting point about, do you trust people would you trust that poor person that's, let's say someone that's dabbled in shitcoins and lost all their wealth, but they are an expert in crypto, they know everything about Bitcoin, but they just never got in because they just thought they knew better. So would you trust them to get it off if you're a widower and you've never known, but you knew, let's say your missus, she goes, she's got it somewhere, we're not around, they would go and trust them, but then they got no money. So would you still trust them? That's a really interesting point.
Yeah, I think that is why I've been asked so often, because their stack of Bitcoin is, or at least they perceive it as a lot less than my stack. So I'm less likely to steal it because it's not material to me. Whereas if you go to another normie that has, a few Satoshis stacked away, then they've obviously got quite a bit more because they've been saving for a number of years. Then that temptation to steal is going to be much higher for someone that is still in the day-to-day grind, and this could be their route to retirement. And you're literally putting it on them, aren't you? Because it's if they can judge that the wife doesn't really understand how much is on there, because I think a lot of people play this down. So if you just go, oh yeah, you've got a windfall here, there's 50 grand sat here, I can just send it straight to you, and you just watch their reaction and see if they're ecstatic, you're like, that's all I need to send them. I'm looking at 1.5 million here or something, and that extra money for the person that's stealing it, that literally could be their retirement. They could be 50 and it takes 15 years of their life and gives it to them back. So I think you just have to be so fucking careful. And I think the main takeaway I take from this is the only way someone can scam like this is if your partner doesn't know the amounts. So you have to trust them with the amounts, or either tell them if you can trust that, or have it written down somewhere. So it's along with the passwords, like the amount of Bitcoin that is in there on the ledger, that should be there. And then talk the person through with the number of Bitcoin here, times it by the price. That is the value. Don't let anyone else tell you different. This is what it is. So if the time comes and you're not comfortable taking this off the ledger and stuff, and you want some help, this is the person to call, get them round. But as they come round, make sure you tell them, I know this. And actually, maybe you actually do agree a bit of a finder's fee with your mate, and go, look, you can have 2% for helping out. And as a thank you, if I die suddenly, you get 2% of the stack. And I've told the missus that, they know. Because it's a great thing to do. And the mate, if they want to take it, they can take it. They can refuse it and just send it if they want.
It's a good idea.
Which is probably what I would do in that situation. I go, no, I'm happy to be enabling the passing down of these Satoshis from one generation to the next. And I think
you're a broken mold. I don't think you're speaking from the masses here, because you genuinely want everything to move on into this world. A lot of people are greedy, and yeah, I agree. You would definitely say no to that. But I think going back to what you said about why don't people tell their other halves. So I've got a few examples of this myself. So is that
in case of divorce?
Wow, that's interesting. Well, I was more thinking, so I'm not looking on that lines, but I was thinking more, so if I do a bet and I win a decent amount of money.
Oh, they're going to spend it.
I'll probably tell her. I'll probably celebrate with that one, but she'll never go backwards and think, how much did you have to put on to get that? Or how many times did you put one on? So I wouldn't just say every time you've done it. It's exactly the same here. So obviously we've discussed in the last pod of how we DCA in every month and stuff like that. So obviously Holly is 100% where money's going in, but she has no concept to how, like, I guess, ultimately how much has gone in over the years, because that would be a horrible number to hear, especially if it went to zero. But obviously it's fine when it goes up. It's like, I'm a legend. And it's always funny, I always say, if it goes to millions, any time for a BJ.
Oh my God.
Probably shouldn't say that with the kids around.
They don't know what that means.
No, it doesn't. But yeah.
So you're literally, like, by saying the amount, then you're worried about them figuring out the investment amount, which I think adds stress. Yeah, to the family.
I think that's it, because when obviously we're early days in this, and look at what's happened over the last 3 weeks. So yesterday I think it went down to 20k, but then today it's up at 25. So you extrapolate that out with how many you've got, it's quite considerable cash sums of money when you think about it.
It's 25%.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, and obviously I'm in a very fortunate position. Holly lived through the 2017 roller coaster, so she saw us go from that to down. So she's more than hardened to it. So I'm probably not really speaking for how we do it, because she's fully aware of it. But I can understand exactly why people with.
But in your situation, though, she knows like the number. She knows your number.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, she never asked, but I show her. She just goes, "Oh, how's Bitcoin doing?" And then I'll just say, I generally just tell her how expensive Bitcoin is at that time. But I don't know. But she probably wouldn't know. Actually, that's a good point, because she just completely trusts me. And if she ever wants to see it on block photo, I can show her. But I don't think she'll ever know the actual Satoshi number. No, because it doesn't mean anything great, really. It's basically, she wants to see the end of the number to see when can we start triggering our plan.
Yeah. But this is the whole point of this topic, though, isn't it? Because obviously she's got me anyway, so she knows that like it's all there, it's all secure. But in reality, the important number is the number of Satoshis that you have, and you've always just got to assume that you disappear one day. What is the fallback plan? And that's the thing that you should have in place to some degree.
Completely agree, because the number that we've always said about wanting to reach, let's say I was to drop dead, and obviously the first thing she thinks about is not going to be Bitcoin, and it could be 2-3 years on, and that number that we wanted to reach would have reached probably times 10, but she would only expect that number still, because that was what she last remembered, not obviously the whole times it by that. If you didn't know what the by that is, you'd be knackered. It's a good point, and I think you can
be scammed, can't you? Just imagine like the worst case scenario could be we both go.
That's always our worry. Well, we probably are going to on jet skis in your lake.
I know, you're just going to smash into together.
We need to really be careful. We should never travel together.
I know, yeah. It's too risky for the Stevens.
Yeah. The Stevenses, they'd be nasty. Dad would be like, "Oh, I could retire. I could have bought a bit of Wrexham Golf Course, and Gareth's gone. And we've got no access to." Yeah, that's true. If me and you gone, that'll be one of those wallets that just didn't get touched for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
And there's a £1 trillion equivalent pounds in a wallet somewhere, and no one's opened it. That's weird.
Never moved since like 2016.
Yeah. To be honest, we know how wallets work anyway. These ledgers, it's only one way, isn't it? In.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's interesting, because that's the thing. Like, I think as soon as Harry can learn, he needs to be onboarded. He'll be technically savvy enough to learn how to do a ledger in a couple of years. I know he will. I've seen him with mobile phones, swiping them over YouTube, finding his videos, skipping ads.
Do, don't you?
Yeah, Gareth, can you get me a purple spiderman too?
He's been thinking about that.
Oh, a purple one. Oh, go on then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You go.
Yeah.
Say thank you, Gareth.
Thank you, Gareth.
he's been stood there patiently for like 2 minutes saying, "I want
every color of the freaking rainbow."
But yeah, no, it's such a very valid point, and we've talked about so much over the last few weeks about why buy it, how to buy it, sacrifices to do, but it's a big consideration. Even if it is a few £1,000s right now, in 10 years' time, it's going to be huge sums of money, and you need to think about that. Really
Would you trust mum and dad with any of the backup and restore? Let's just assume like we get wiped off the planet. Maybe let's even assume like Holly goes as well. We're in a horrible situation. Yeah. So the only people that are left is like mum and dad. Do you think they're getting it back?
So
I don't think
Dad switched on enough with the electrical items that he could probably do it, but I think he would need some help. And the trouble is, where do you get your help from? You don't Google.
Yeah, we're all gone.
Yeah. God, I don't know, to be honest. That's a $1 million question, because Dad's not even really interested in setting up Coinbase. He's always tried to get me to do it.
And I've done it as well. I've bought quite a bit of his Bitcoin on my Coinbase account, even though it's
and then we hold it, don't we? So
yeah,
I don't. To be honest,
Yeah, I don't think so. No, I'm genuinely honest. So I think we need to think about it ourselves. So I think this is an interesting conversation that we have offline about what we do in succession planning, because it's always one of those things, about like the words and stuff like that. It's like where you put them, because you got to really think about that as well. Because if you can't put them in a bank vault like you would in the past. It's probably the most dangerous place to put them in the world, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you could split them up. So you don't put them all together in any bank vault. So you'd probably put 6 in one, 6 in another, 6 in another, 6 in another. So you need all 4.
The thing is, though, let's say you did that. Let's just play it out. So if someone asks for advice, how would they do it? So, okay, let's remove our relationship out of this and our knowledge that we've both got. And you're let's say me without you. Okay, so you're going to have your 24 words. You need to spread them over, what we're saying, 4 different areas for each. Then you can't trust one person with all 4, because someone can go rogue. There might be a time where their kid gets kidnapped. They might get wind of me and they kidnap their kid thinking, I know you've got X amount. You're going to have a decent sum. I want, like in Austin Powers when he goes, I want $1 million, and you don't react too badly. And they go, okay, $10 million. It could be something like that. And
he says 1 billion in the end.
Yeah, 1 billion. And you just think, well, you can't trust them with all the words, but then if you trust 3 people with the words or 4 people with the words, and then one of them dies and you die, then it's a forgive forever jigsaw, isn't it? Jesus. So what do you do? Give everybody, oh my life. You just have to trust someone ultimately, don't you? Which goes against all of Bitcoin rules, doesn't it? Don't trust, verify.
Well, you don't trust verifying, but essentially, hopefully you verified certain people. That's what you've got to hope you've done. So you can then put the trust in it. It's like, you don't trust Bitcoin, but we verified it is what it is. So now we can trust it.
Okay.
So you don't trust blindly is all that saying means. So you hope, but that's the thing. And it's why it's an interesting question, because you just go, there's so many examples of family members turning bad once large amounts of money is involved. And there's like jewelry goes missing from the house, cars go missing, houses get undervalued and oversold, like loads of things can happen. And then suddenly once you're divvying up money, and one person tends to lead it in some shape or form, and if they're sat there with a couple of £1 million worth of the estate, they just start thinking what they could do with all of that and how little they could do if they have to divvy it up 3 or 4 ways. So that's the same thing with this. And the problem is you're more likely to get away with this one because it's not going to be in the system.
If you're thinking one level, which is your Bitcoin, you could almost share someone else in your family or your circle of friends, providing I think if they had similar amounts to you, because there'd be no jealousy, you're on an even playing field. I think the biggest problem comes, and I think it's what you were saying then, when it's not yours, it's one removed, so it's about divvying up. So let's say, let's talk about Harry and Jesse then. So Harry's the one that's all switched on and clever with the Bitcoin thing. Jesse just does, I don't care, not interested in money, doesn't care. And then me and Holly pop our clogs, and it comes to separating it. Harry hasn't really got any himself, so he ends up inheriting X amount, which is quite a lot for him. He could go and do what the hell he wants, travel the world, buy Birmingham City Football Club, whatever he wants to do. Or he could share it with Jesse and, Arthur and co. Make everyone have a better life. That's where the problem comes, isn't it? Because it's the personal greed. There's not really enough to spread it around everyone. And I think that's where the biggest issue is. And that's when it's the parents, isn't it? So we're probably not going to be in the problem of that. It'll be our kids and grandkids. We have one more request from this young man who's been waiting here again.
Grandma,
Yep.
can I have a blue Hulk and
Blue Hulk?
Yes, and Green Hulk.
Oh, you've already asked for Green Hulk.
I just had to ask.
Yeah, he was already on the list.
Yeah.
Now he's on the list twice.
So interestingly, actually, there was a tweet that went out a couple of months ago, Harry, and it was about you. And we were talking about hodling, and that's when you keep things stored up for years and years and years. And he stored up some poo
for 12 days in your tummy, didn't you?
Yeah. And then the poo tower.
He's the poo hodler.
The poo hodler.
Tower.
Last one.
Look. Spider-Man, look. There.
I know, that's Red Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Tower.
Yeah. So I think those are such interesting topics conversation.
Yeah,
But
'cause I think one of the
it's quite
things.
scary. It's quite scary, isn't it?
Yeah, because the problem is, like, I mean, the key is to be transparent with the people that matter, with just what your wealth is. Like, what are you storing? But then you have to weigh that up against, number one, you're adding them into the stress pool of knowing how much you've invested. And then they might start checking the ups and downs, which I think is like where you are. But then you also have the more nefarious reasons why you wouldn't trust someone that you're even married to, is because you could get divorced. And if it does happen, having a load of money on the side that someone doesn't know about is to your advantage. And
I think on that point, Gaz, is you're going to massively struggle, aren't you, with the next person you let in close, like full-time close, because I suppose your trust is going to be in me and not in anyone else for so long anyway, until you can trust that person, and that's going to take it's probably going to take a lot longer than it would if you were just a normal routine 9-to-5 guy.
yeah,
Like trust on another level of trust, because the thing for you is not letting anyone in to know before that relationship's built enough, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like it's insanely hard to, like, because you always hear about it, don't you? Like, you're going to be one of those 90-year-old men with like 15, 23-year-olds, you are.
I hope not.
Honestly, they like my personality.
They like the Satoshis. I wouldn't be stupid.
No, you wouldn't. No. But yeah, it's. I think. Yeah, actually, going back to what you said about, what was his name? Craig
Wright was the one that
Craig Wright.
allegedly stole it.
If you go back and if you actually genuinely want to find out the root cause of this, you just look at his ledger transactions and go, well, you have to buy it. Like, remember when Barclays froze your account because you took out some Bitcoin and some money came in from Estonia? It was like, hold on a minute, where's this come from? Like, it's dodgy. This is not usual transactions. So it freezes your account. Surely, but then again, if you left it in the ledger and then split the ledger around, that's impossible to know, isn't it? But what you'd want to know is, like, you've got X amount of Bitcoin you've just transferred and now become a millionaire. Like, where did that come from? What was the source of it? And I guess if this guy was already in on it and he had a few million Bitcoin already and he's just doubled his stack to 2 million, then he would only ever need to probably take out 1 million of those at the time. So you'd be like, oh, look, I made $1 million here. And he's hidden one of his other wallets. So I suppose you could get away with it, couldn't you?
Yeah. So in that case, because it was so early, you can actually go back and just deduce which Dave Kleiman's addresses were. So you can have a look at the sends and receives. But if you're just a random person and someone becomes like a friend that supposedly was to check your Bitcoin, said there wasn't any, and then they suddenly become rich, it would be impossible to really like look through which addresses and just determine it from the network, because chances are there's not going to be a sizable amount in there like there was back in 2010 when there's only 10 people on the network and certain people have huge amounts of Bitcoin in their wallets. You can just deduce which one was his. So it's going to be much harder. And but I think the big thing is because the thing is, one of the weirdest, like the safest ways probably to do it is actually to treat it like a bank account. And if you do leave it in the exchange, then all your partner needs to know is that you have an account on Coinbase, and that account would get handed over to them. And then they could just press the sell button and take the money out. So weirdly, it's one of the rare cases where if you were to trust custody, allow someone else to take custody of your Bitcoin, then it potentially could simplify the handing it down to others, because just as they're going to contact a bank to get access to your bank accounts, or maybe you got shares somewhere, they would just ring them up or contact them. They would then have to prove that you had died and then prove that you are the next of kin, and then it would probably take months, but you would eventually get access and that person would get it. It'd just be standard. So weirdly, in Bitcoin land, that is one of the ways, and it could be one of the reasons to potentially leave it there. But of course, we know that is not a long-term solution. Like if you're thinking, and this is the thing with inheritance stuff, you should, hopefully we're not going to die anytime soon. Hopefully it's 50, 60 years ahead. And so in that instance, you've undoubtedly taken custody of it yourself. So now there's no one to call, there's no one to email to go, oh, I'm the next of kin. No, your ledger does not give a shit. I wonder how many phone calls and emails Ledger get to go, oh, I'm the next of kin of X, like John Jones. Can I have access to the Bitcoin he's got? And they're like, we can confirm if you really want, like legally, that yes, we did send a ledger to your address, but we have no clue how to access it. It's the whole point of the device is it's locked. And that must be devastating to the person who is kind of hearing this, because if they haven't had enough information, at least you need to tell them where it is. And then,
man, imagine knowing that. Let's just say yours, and you have it there, and it's like you've left it in an envelope. That'd be the biggest troll you could ever do, is just leave me an envelope with it and without the numbers, like maybe just with one number missing. And you know that I could do it in 9 times. Yeah, so I knew 3 and I'd left the 4th out, so that'd be 9 times. And let's just say you set it so each time it left it 6 months. So you knew in, well, it's 4.5 years I would have it, but it might take 4.5 years.
Yeah, well, on a ledger, if you get the password wrong 10 times, it wipes.
Oh, geez. And then you'd need, oh, bloody hell. So then you'd need your thingy, wouldn't you? So who was it then? Remember, let's tell that story then of that family that just, he left it on an online wallet maybe, and he knew that he was his, and he had the password, but he couldn't quite remember.
Yeah, it was
like saving him. He had to go 3 years or something, and he waited and then put it in again and he got it wrong.
yeah, because I think he knew roughly what it was. He likes the numbers, like let's just say like 4033. He was pretty sure it was that, but he's obviously slightly changed it. So he was like, oh, maybe this time I went 4303. But then each time you do it, yeah, if the whatever wallet he used, it doubles the time each time. And I think it went from like 1 day to like, actually doesn't double it. It just goes up exponentially. There's like 1 day, 1 week, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And then eventually once you get to 10, you're done. And yeah, he just tortured himself, I think, for 7 years and eventually never got it. He forgot the password to his own wallet. And yeah, and there's another guy that had the same thing. He didn't have to wait as long, but yeah, you have 10 goes. And it was the same thing. He knew like his password also was like, say 4033. And he had just switched the numbers around somewhere. And yeah, he'd put like $5,000 or something on there and it had gone to 100. And yeah, he was torturing himself. He knew he'd like down to 8 attempts. So he had 2 left. And he just put it in a drawer and forgot about it. But then Bitcoin went up and it went up to like 500,000. And he went, I just need to do it. And he did the final 2 and it wiped.
So let's just get that right then. So if you got a ledger and it's wiped, that's physically gone to 0. In order to get that Bitcoin back, you're going to either have to have another ledger with your 24 words, aren't you?
Yep. And
and
he didn't have the 24 words.
Oh my life. So
He'd
just
thrown them away.
For the clarity of this, there is no way of getting the 24 words after you've had them shown you there.
No, you have to write those down, and you also need to remember your PIN code. Yeah.
This is the scary thing, that in order for Bitcoin to be the way, it needs to become hopefully a bit easier and less. How you do that? Can you do it by ping? Your touch finger.
Yeah, well, I think the devices are going to get a lot better, but I think it's on us. It's on us as Bitcoiners is to educate our family. It isn't that hard when you really think about it. I think that you were quite like scared of ledgers when you first got involved in it, and then you've used it more and more and more, and you've realized it's just a USB device. Like the addresses, the scariest thing I think is sending to an address, because a Bitcoin address looks scary.
That's got easier, hasn't it?
Yeah, it looks scary, but all you need to do is almost save them into both ends, and then you just make sure that if you talk people through the classic do a test transaction, and then before you send the full lot, just send 10 quid's worth first and then send the balance after it, then, oh no, turn it off, get off. We definitely get cancelled for sharing that. That's a whole different freaking show, that. But God, I totally lost my train of thought now. Seeing Harry's little winky sign up.
You were talking about setting up a test.
Dava!
Yeah.
Dava, what should Dav your kid on you?
You need to put your willy away.
I just
This is the way. Yeah,
Willy
you said
bum
about
bum.
Willy bum bum. How do you think, Dava?
drinking whiskey.
Are
What?
you going to whiskey, are you? Drinking whiskey.
Wushty.
Whiskey.
Oh, whiskey. Yeah,
Yes, he does.
there it is.
And he likes whiskey too.
You do.
No, is that Daddy?
Oh, Daddy does, yeah.
I like whiskey too.
You're a beer drinker, I think you are, Harry.
Yes, Dava. I was bigger, thought I was, but I am bigger now, am I?
You are, yeah. Yeah, you were saying about setting up a test transaction, which I think is the best thing to do. But I know when I first started doing it, and you see the fees, and let's just say you get quite cautious when you do your first few buys, because let's just say, going back to last week, and you said your first one's 100 quid. A load of that's been eaten up by doing, I don't know, £10 on doing a book or an audio by Audible purchase or something like that. And then you put your 50 quid into Bitcoin, and then you want to do a test transaction on your £100 ledger. So straight away, you've gone 200 quid in. You've only got like 50 quid in there anyway. And then you're going to send, let's say, £2 across to this ledger, and you're going to lose 50p in transaction fees. And you're like, I don't want to do that. If I want to send it, I want to make it worth my while. I don't want to do it. But then you
that's for your DCA purchases. We're talking about one-off, getting it off the ledger for inheritance.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I guess you would already tried that, wouldn't you, with a small amount? But setting it up, it's the easiest thing I have now from Coinbase Pro. It's in my to send out items. It's just there, so I just go boink, send it out. Yeah. Which is how I was getting completely scammed by you for all those years, because I thought I sent it to my own wallet.
Yeah, no, so did I as well.
I always didn't understand. I was like, you used to say on Ledger Live, you follow it, and you could always tell when I put stuff in. I was like, how are you seeing my ledger? I never got that. And I thought, well, you must have set it up for you so you can see it.
Oh no, I can see your ledger as well, which is why that's what confused me. I can see all your transactions but it just follows both ledgers. They don't have to be plugged in. All it does is it follows the addresses that have been logged onto my ledger, and it just follows them. But what had confused me is that what was the split of the addresses, and the split of your Bitcoin I thought was on your ledger. And it wasn't until I think we actually accessed it and we saw there was no Bitcoin on it. I was a little bit confused. And obviously I went back to mine. I'm like, oh, it's here. I honestly did not know that. I thought we had switched it. And then it all just kind of came back that, oh yeah, we intended to switch it, but we never did. But yeah, but my overall point was ledgers aren't that hard. So in reality, what we should do is, there's no excuse really, I don't think, provided you can trust your wife. And that's just, hopefully you do. There's no excuse to not go through that process at least once or twice with them. It isn't that hard to learn. It really isn't.
I agree.
It's like Bitcoin sounds like a big technical, scary thing. But when you really dumb it down and go, look, this is all you got to do. You just plug this thing in. This will come up. You have to log in to Coinbase or to Kraken or to whatever exchange you want. And this is how you find out the amount. And if you do want to sell it, this is where you go. And it really is not that difficult. And when you counterbalance it with, well, what could happen if I just disappear? All this money could be gone and your family don't have it. And if you just spend half an hour once every probably 2 years, that would probably safeguard you from total loss.
It isn't difficult to do, and I think that for me that's the take-home message on this one is to do that. And I think I'm going to take something from today as well and actually do that. I think that's the key, because what idiots did both pop it and all that is just lost. It literally is having the winning lottery ticket, but not like losing it, isn't it, for them?
Yeah,
it's like actually that Irish couple that, remember, they had the numbers, but they never paid on that online. The direct debit didn't pass and it came in, and they tried to sue the National Lottery for not paying out. But it's like, well, your direct debit didn't pass, you didn't pay.
Oh, yeah.
How bad's that?
Oh, so that they didn't actually have the tickets for that week?
No, but it was online, so they didn't know about it. But so they say in the news reporters. Chances are they haven't probably had it for years, but I don't know. But you know how they get sent away, don't you? But yeah, I think that's a really interesting topic, though.
Yeah, because it's because ultimately, I just saw a good tweet today about, for our kids, they're not going to be able to afford homes, and like for them to be able to retire, the price of houses are going through the roof, inflation's going through the roof. So it just really does make it critical that the Bitcoiners that have got kids, we make sure we pass it on. It'd be just devastating that there's going to be future Bitcoiners that end up having to start from scratch if we don't pass it on properly. And it's I think people like the whole privacy thing and being private, and I'm probably the worst for that. But like with everything that, because I'm conscious that I could just disappear, and especially some of the ways that I live my life, just traveling off and disappearing. Sometimes I'm not sure if I'm going to come back. I don't know. Anything could fucking happen. Where some of the places and situations I've been in. So you just go, look, it's just sensible that if anything bad was to happen, then at least I'm confident that you will be able to at least find that and then figure it out. You can do what you want with it. But yeah, but for others, it's just, are they talking about it, or are they too private? Do they not trust their wife? Do they not? Can you really trust your best mate? And really having those you got to really think about it and then make some tough decisions, because if you do keep it all to yourself, then if you do get hit by a bus tomorrow, it's gone. And
one of the things that I always used to think, and me and Harley have talked about it quite a lot, like going back 8-9 years ago, it was cool to say I've got a £100 Levi t-shirt on, or the Cost t-shirt on. Now it's cool to say I've got a £5 one from Primark, and it's like the real thing. And that's like the new thing, isn't it? It's about being happy with your saving. And I even said last week, it's cool now to say, I can't save, etc., etc. Whereas going back to what you were saying about being private and stuff, we don't talk about how much we've got, because it's almost cool to say you haven't got anything, as like the sympathy vote, if you like. So you're not going to just turn around and go, oh yeah, I can retire in a few years if this happens. Whilst that is super future planning, but you've got so much FUD out there that you can't do that almost, because it's like, oh, here we go, you put in all you trust that much, you're a fool. So you're opening up, and then you have to have that bloody conversation and answer the same 8 questions, and you don't want to do it. So you just go, you know what, I'm going to keep myself to myself. So a lot of people will be in that boat where they can't trust their wife, potentially. They can't have any of their family members that they want to tell about. And they're going to be knackered, aren't they? Because privacy is quite a big thing when it comes to wealth. There's some people that haven't got much money that will have the latest car based on leasing and stuff, like, again, we talked about last week. And they'll be the ones that probably love to tell everyone how much they've got. But they probably haven't got that much anyway.
Yeah. The upside for us is that the more people that can't trust their partners and end up dying eventually over the next 10, 20, 30 years, if they don't put proper inheritance plans in place, then those Satoshis are never moving. They're never selling. So they're going to be lifetime hodlers, which essentially moves their Bitcoin out of the supply. It's now not circulating. So it actually increases the value of Bitcoin. So weirdly, other Bitcoiners are actually incentivized for people to not have good inheritance planning.
That's interesting. So yeah, of course, the price would go up because it's never getting moved. That's an interesting concept as well.
I like how Harry promised to be quiet for this hour.
Yeah, this is why you can't trust your kid with your wealth. He promised me I even got him a KFC and a Maltesers crush room.
No way. I did have a purple Spider-Man just over there, but he's going in the bin now.
No. No, never.
you got to be good then.
Never. Then he's got
Say, have fun staying poor.
No. Never.
I wanted to say have fun staying poor. But
I heard that, yeah.
Never. Can I have ever wish Spider-Man?
Which one?
Spider-Man. Ever wish Spider-Man.
Don't know what you're saying. Oh,
No. Cool. Well,
yeah.
I think we're good anyway. I think
I
we've.
think that's good. I think it's been a
Are
decent.
you doing, Dara?
Yeah, we've been going. So
Dara, are you tired?
Am I tired?
Yeah.
Actually, it's nearly 9 o'clock, Harry. What are you doing still awake? You're on my bed asleep 2 hours ago.
I wasn't. Dara.
look how many beds we've got in this bedroom.
Dara, look.
4 beds.
Is that in case Harry wets 2 of them? He's laughing.
Silly Dara.
You wet the bed, Harry?
This is your phone.
Yeah. So yeah, well, cheers for tonight. I think just got to end it with: if you don't trust your wife, then let the family have fun staying poor.
Indeed. Good night, Harry. Have fun staying poor.
Thank you. Thank you, Dara.